started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and now...
That's right. We are live.
The ghost faced himself, Brandon Tanev.
This isn't like the start of last season when it was just, it looked like the Canucks were just a beer league team not playing defense at all. And just before Chris goes, no, I'm kidding, Chris, you can actually go now.
no, hold on.
Oh, we have to give more time for coming on late. So.
I still had, hold on. All right. Chris go, and then I got something else to say at the end.
So, an elf and a midget in 2 back-to-back games. He's definitely on a friendship tour for sure.
Saying, oh yeah, I'm okay with him being, the 6'7" defenseman. No! He is a AHL defenseman right now.
Look, Shonky, don't mind Devin, okay? We all struggle with Devin, so you know.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. Okay, wait. Let me do this again. Hello to you. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio. Join us on the Area 51 Sports Network. It is, as we are 2 hours as of this for those that are listening on the podcast today, and thank you for all that have joined us live. Hit that like button, share our stuff. We are now 2 hours officially into fall. It is officially the fall season now. As of 5 o'clock local time, that's when it turns fall. That is the technical way. I'm learning a lot now. And we are now in the midst here as training camp is beginning in full gear. We have got a lot to talk about. We've got people back and they're clothed. Even Devin, there's no wine. You are not in a robe. You have come professional.
Someone wanted wine?
Good to see you. How are things?
Things are unbelievably busy with me, and that's why you haven't seen this. Some people might call it beautiful mug. Some people might call it ugly. I don't know. This mug in front of you today. So yeah, I'm happy to be back. Holy shit. And things are ramping up for us for the NHL. So, oh man, let's get some fucking hockey going.
Well, Devin, one thing I will do is I will catch you up because you did have a confused look on your face when at the beginning there when Kevin had to correct himself.
Yeah.
A few episodes back, we had one of Kevin's old instructors on from BCIT and the radio program there, and he gave him shit for addressing everyone instead of just addressing one person.
Oh, the listener.
One listener. I got that diploma for some reason. Better learn something. It's true. Yes. So I'm trying to get everyone out of my system, and it's still a work in progress. Tyler, I'm still a work in progress. How are things up there? Was anything earth shattering going on up north?
No. I guess the Prince George earthquake is a thing on Twitter this afternoon, but no, too far away to be feeling that, and that was not a very strong earthquake. But things are good. Quite dry here. Just it hasn't rained in a while, and that's very unusual for September. I imagine that this run is going to come to an end here pretty soon, but we're enjoying a little bit of an extended summer, although cold in the morning and cold at night now. But that and hockey season, I'll be back refereeing here in a couple of weeks. Things are moving right along, right from summer to winter.
Yes. Sean, how are you doing?
First off, I'm going to help Tyler break into reffing. Boo! You suck, ref.
Yeah. No, I was out last night watching some of let's say the next generation. They're guys I work with doing senior hockey all the time. It was nice they were just doing a U18 scrimmage, or not a scrimmage. It was like a inter squad game for tryout purposes. So it's kind of nice to get back into that groove a little bit and provide some feedback and say hello to the parents. They're always very level-headed about their sports watching, of course. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
No booing though. Not last.
Not yet.
Not that important yet.
Sean,
But
what you
yeah,
wanna-
I'm doing great. I'm excited. We got some. We're getting to some meaty subjects here with training camp and all that, instead of just a lot of sort of. So that we got through the summer slog. So yeah, let's. I'm excited to get into training camp and actual games here coming up already this weekend.
Yes, split squad games between the Flames and the Canucks on Sunday. Just as a sidebar, the WHL starts this weekend as well, regular season. So they've already, and the AJHL I believe is already starting. BCHL so we're full board here. We're getting into the car. We're driving it off the parking lot onto the road. Chris will be joining us at some point. We're going to start with the Calgary Flames because we're waiting for Chris, and Devin is excited. 3 interesting stories happened. First of all, I think one not surprising. Adam Ruzicka, 1 year, $750,000. Another one, I think some may scratch their head that Brett Ritchie is back. I'm personally not surprised that he was signed for a $750,000 deal in 1 year. I think the thing that shocks me is Sonny Milano is not signed to a contract for a National Hockey League team. Sonny Milano is signed to a PTO with the Calgary Flames. I'm going to start with Devin here because we haven't heard from Devin in a long time. I am stunned that Sonny Milano could not get a contract.
I think him and his agent overplayed his hand, and kind of very much like Klingberg did, and we saw that he changed his agent halfway through the summer, and then he finally signed a few days later. It's an interesting relationship that you have to have and with your agent, and it just seems like that's what happened. Is they overplayed it, and now they're off to a PTO. And from a Flames perspective, I love it. You're not committing to him. You get to see exactly who he is and what he is, and he's more of an offensive player, so you got to expect he's going to get some sort of opportunity with either Lindholm or Kadri centering him. And it's a smart move by Tree Living, but I am surprised that obviously Milano does have a number in his head and maybe a term in his head that he really wants to get to, and he's going to have to show it within this preseason.
Yeah, I look at that, and we're talking about a guy whose career high is 14 goals. He's done it twice. He's got 36 goals in 197 NHL games. It's not like he's a bona fide top 6 winger. I think there's definitely a lot of flash in there, and I think he got a lot of he had a lot of eyes on him because he was playing with Trevor Zegras last year in Anaheim, and I think it's a good pickup for the Flames and someone to push. I think there's also there is cap implications there. I tried to go through it a little bit today, and if he's still looking for about a $2 million deal, that's going to be tough. That'll be tough for the Flames to work. But if he's willing to go a little bit less, and the Flames like him, then I think that's there is a spot for him. But it's also I think they also want to make sure that they aren't blocking the path completely for one of the younger players, whether it's a Matthew Phillips or a Jacob Peltier.
Well, I think the other thing to remember with Sonny Milano too is it's a PTO. That doesn't mean he's going to sign with the Flames. We've seen players signed on to other contracts after PTOs, so that is certainly a possibility. This is okay. Let's just hear me out here, because I think some people that are on the Jacob Peltier should be on the Calgary Flames roster are not going to be happy with how I'm going to say this, but hear me out. I thought it was interesting. We had the Young Stars Classic. Great that we've talked about that at nauseum. Great to have that back in Penticton. Devin, you were in Penticton. Did you see any?
I wanted to. I really did. It was just there's too much going on at that point, unfortunately. But I did have an opportunity, if I wanted to go see one through some of my connections. So I really wish I did. But I did get to see Bruce Boudreau. I did get to see the Sedin twins and the upper management of the Vancouver Canucks, which was pretty damn cool.
Awesome. Okay.
That is awesome. I'm extremely jealous about all of that, by the way.
Just walking through the parking lot.
You know everybody. You've got a whole network of contacts. You should be an insider.
Listen, my Rolodex is probably 2. I got 2 people.
Well, it sounds like it just grew another 3 or 4 there.
Well, hey, you know what?
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask for their numbers.
Yeah. Oh shoot. Yeah, I don't know if a crazy bald head bearded guy running across the parking lot trying to find a parking spot and then running up to Boudreau and being like, hey, my brother's a big fan. Can I get a picture?
Yeah, wait till he tunes into the show and sees those uniforms on your set there.
Yeah, hey, I said my brother, not me.
Anyway, so just to go back to this, Devin, can we say we missed Devin and Tyler? Can we just say we missed the candor?
Oh, we're just getting warmed up here.
Warmed up.
It's very civil right now. Just wait a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was less than 3 minutes before you ruined the show with swearing, but that's another story.
Fuck off.
So we at the Young Stars. I think that there was a higher expectation of a performance of a Jacob Pelche, and I don't think he showed as well as Flames management wanted. And I think this was in part why you bring in a Sonny Milano and you bring in a Brett Ritchie. I think that there's some people in Flames world that have this expectation and this thing that Jacob Pelche has deserved a spot and is ready for the National Hockey League. I don't think Flames management agrees with you. I think that they may see Pelche as maybe needing some more seasoning in Calgary with the AHL club. And he's just not ready. And what they saw from him, I think, just in general, I don't think he came away as one of the dominant players in that Young Star Classic. He didn't pop as much for me. I think I was wondering if they had Pelche do some specific things because he penalty killed a lot, but he doesn't come away as a shining star, which I think just opened the door to bring in some competition. And that's, I think, where we're at with Jacob Pelche. The spot's not earned for him.
Even if he did come out and blow the doors off of the Young Stars Classic, then he still has to prove it at an NHL level against NHL players. They just recently re-signed a player who played 28 games in the NHL in Adam Ruzicka, and he's proven that he can play with the NHL team. And as of right now, I don't think you don't want to push Pelche out of his comfort zone. Not yet. It's not like he has to fly. Say, for instance, it was back down in Stockton with the Heat. It's not like he has to fly all the way from Stockton to Calgary to get called up to the team. He'll be here in Calgary, and they'll be able to. And Daryl Sutter will be able to look at him. And I don't think he's going to make the team. I don't think he's going to make the roster just with how many people are in front of him. You have Eakin in front of him, Cody Eakin, who was just signed as well, PTO.
Yeah.
And yeah, like there's a lot more Daryl Sutter-esque players like a Brett Ritchie who just signed, like you said, in front of Jacob Pelche. And I don't understand if people are going to be in uproar that Pelche didn't make it. First of all, he didn't earn it. And second of all, let him rip up the AHL. Let him show that his second year pro or his first year pro wasn't a fluke, and his second year pro could be similar, if not better.
And for me, it's not even just Pelche that should be it. And I also don't think Eakin is a roadblock for Pelche or Phillips or anyone like that. Even a Cole Schwint, I'd throw him in there as one of the. I think those are the three young players that are really looking to break into this roster who haven't really done it before. Because I see Cody Eakin as being more of a fourth line center. So I think that becomes a bit more of a Ruzicka Eakin battle. Even it may, but Ruzicka could also can play the wing. You could also play him in that on the third line, and have Eakin or someone else on the fourth line there. But yeah, I think you have. What I like about what they've done it is PTO. Milano's on a PTO. You're not committed to him. So if Pelche does come in, and it's the rookie camps and rookie tournaments are they're such a small sample size. So you can't just and sometimes these higher end players they don't turn it up until like main camp. So I still think there's still time for him to show that, but he's on the back foot now, Pelche. But there's still the path is still not fully blocked for him there, and I think that's a good thing for him, and that's a good thing for the Flames organization.
One other person I think that I thought showed really well was Conor Zerry. I was really impressed with his puck handling. I was really impressed with his command on the ice. I thought he showed a lot. I would be interested to see him get a good look at preseason. I'm not saying he should be in the lineup. I think definitely he's another guy that needs some seasoning in Calgary, but I think that's the thing with him. Yeah, I don't think that there is I agree. I don't necessarily think that there's a roadblock, but one of the things that we've been discussing, I think that's been happening in this off season, and we've seen this with a lot of young players getting these, they have a breakout year and all of a sudden they're getting $8 million a year. Tage Thompson, Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas. And I feel like there's some people that, if it's a young player, they want them in the lineup, and it's still important to season them if they're not ready. If Pelche isn't ready, it's fine to season this guy for another year. I don't think that this is going to hurt him in any way, shape, or form.
I mean, it wouldn't be because people are constantly obsessing over salary cap space, would it? I mean, that's what's really right. That's really been the big change over the last number of years. Is that yes, seasoning's good, but that darn cap is getting in the way.
It's flat cap.
That's really it.
Yeah, you can work things with bonuses, and ELCs are a lot cheaper. Yeah, it's having young players on cheap contracts is a nice it's a nice thing for a team to have, but you can't force them into positions that they're not quite ready for.
Yeah, it's just very tantalizing to think about, like, well, we can get this guy in here. He seems close. We'll maybe to take a chance on it, whatever the thinking is. And then you think about all the additional cap space available for heading down later in the season towards the trade deadline. I mean, that's got to have an influence on these decisions, whereas before, and I think there'd be more of a willingness to be patient with younger players.
Well, and I think we just need to preface as well. We're talking about Pelche making the opening day lineup. I think we're all in, or I'm assuming that we're all in agreement here that he will get a shot in the NHL this year. I don't think that there's any doubt that he'll get called up at some point, if barring injury, or maybe he's doing very well and they want to see him for a game or two up with the big club playing middle 6 minutes.
Yeah, and injuries are inevitable, and that, as long as he is doing well in the minors, we'll get a chance for sure.
And the other thing is, with all the contractual stuff, he's waiver exempt. He can be sent down to the AHL without having to go through waivers. Meanwhile, you've got a player like Matthew Phillips who has done everything that has been called upon him in the AHL since he's been down there and turned pro, including putting up over a point per game last year. He is waiver eligible this year. So I wonder if we see him get more of a look that than Pelche in this preseason.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. I don't see him fitting underneath Daryl Sutter type hockey. If Phillips is going to do well, then he's got to be playing top six. And if he does make it very hard on him, the coaching staff and the Tree Living to keep him around, then yeah, but good on him. I just don't. He's a smaller player, and I don't see him fitting in with Daryl Sutter and what his normal type of stereotypical hockey player that he puts in the lineup.
And the other issue with Calgary here is dealing with that right side. I'm not convinced that it is solid. Mangiapane is fine. Where you play Mangiapane, I think, is going to be very interesting. Tyler Toffoli, while fine, I'm concerned about having him in a top six role going forward. I think he's more in a bottom six role at this particular point in time. Does Matthew Phillips become an option for a potential another right shot forward in this lineup as a trade chip? With the obligatory Juuso Välimäki part of the package, because we can't have a trade option without Juuso Välimäki.
You're trying to pawn off Välimäki again.
But at least I'm not trying to pawn him to Vancouver.
I don't know if what you guys have been talking about with potential other defensive candidates that could be on the move, but I could definitely see a Noah Hannafin being a part of that. The only reason why I say that is because he has the most clout and could bring back the bigger package for a top six forward.
I just don't see that because going back to what Daryl likes and what Daryl wants is I think he's going to want to have a solid defense, and that's what the Flames have. I've seen lots of talk about, well, you're going to have to move a defenseman to get someone in Dev. I think you are right. If they're going to have to move anyone, it's Noah Hannafin, but at what at the cost of what is the strength of this team, which is the blue line?
Well, I think that there will be more talk about this just because they did bring in Mackenzie Weegar. It really also, I think, is depending on how Juuso Välimäki looks in the preseason, right? And he's still on a one-way contract here in Calgary. And is he waiver eligible this year?
He is. Him and Connor Mackey are both waiver eligible. And so I don't think anyone's picking up Välimäki at this point. Mackey is someone I think that they're going to have to make sure if they're going to wave him down to the Wranglers. They're going to have to do that very strategically, because I think that'd be someone that teams would be very. He'd be someone that teams would be very interested in giving a shot if the Flames aren't willing to.
Well, I think there's teams out there that could potentially want to see what Välimäki could be, like a Seattle, like an Ottawa, who's on the upper echelon of potentially being a push for the playoffs. I could definitely see one of those type of teams take that bit of a risk. But yeah, Connor Mackey's on that list as well. And like even with having Connor Mackey's played definitely a few games within the NHL, more than a few, and he's done decently well. We know Zadorov could be up in that second pairing area, maybe not exactly where you want him to be, but he can do that. And you're right, Sean. This is that the defense for this iteration of the Calgary Flames is exactly why everything's so. We're talking about trading a defenseman, and also, yeah, like I said, it really depends on what the package is coming back, but it definitely would be a top 6 right winger.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, Tyler. Were you going to say something?
One thing I was going to say is that A big sort of wild card in that is, how does Tanev look? I know he's been cleared. He's skating, but he's not going to be playing. They're gonna bring him in slowly. So I honestly don't see them, at least early on in the season, making that move. And then it'll all depend on what the landscape looks like, where the Flames are sitting, how everyone else is doing, and all that, and let alone how does the forward group look? Does a Milano hit? Does a Pelche hit? Maybe it's Matthew Phillips or whoever. I think we're going to see them more. I think we're going to see them ride it out, at least for the first little bit here, and see what's up, as well as see if there's any waiver wire activity, because I think we will see teams try and sneak some players down through the waivers through this preseason and early season because of cap reasons.
One other thing that I think, I think the Mackenzie Weegar is going to get done, but I have to wonder if this doesn't get done sooner rather than later, how long Brad Treliving waits. And I only say that just because what happened with Johnny Gaudreau, I wonder how gun-shy Brad Treliving specifically is going to be about Mackenzie Weegar and not getting that contract. And, a lot of teams are really high on Mackenzie Weegar, and I think you can get a lot for him. I would rather him stay on the Flames. I think that would be the better option, but I don't think that Brad Treliving is going to wait that long to get this done. I think if they can get something done, that's great. If they're not, but I just don't see Brad saying we're going to go in the season with Mackenzie Weegar as a UFA. Not for a long time. I mean, it could go to the trade deadline, but I don't know. I'm really interested in that scenario.
I don't think so. I think it will get done, whether or not it's now or later. Tree's not. Tree doesn't strike me as one that would be weary of this. He made the right call last year with Johnny Gaudreau, so I don't think that has anything to do with it. I don't think you trade him either, because I guess it does depend on what you get back for a Mackenzie Weegar, but you just traded for him. Him and Huberdeau are good buddies. And everything that I've heard from Pat Steinberg is that it will get done, and it sounds like it's very, very close. And I think for Mackenzie Weegar as well, he just had his best year, and who knows if he can live up to that again this year. And that's why there's the whole debate about who's going to be quarterback in that power play. And I think this is the time for Mackenzie Weegar to get the most out of his contract.
I mean, I'll say about Brad Treliving, and he certainly changed my opinion. Initially when the Gaudreau thing happened, I'm like, how is this guy not under more fire? Then he turns around and makes the deal with Tkachuk for Huberdeau and Weegar, and then brings in Kadri, ships out Monahan. So you look at all of that in totality and say, this is not a general manager that's going to capitulate because of Weegar's contract situation. He's gonna make the deal that he wants to make, and if Weegar's not on board with that, then they'll move on from him. I think that, and it doesn't seem like Brad Treliving is feeling much heat from above as far as his job security. So that's even less reason for him to make a I don't know if knee-jerk or panicked are the right phrases for this, but you know what I'm trying to say. He's not going to be feeling forced into making a deal just to try and get something back.
See, the way I look at it is at the very worst, Weegar is a quote unquote year-long rental.
Yeah.
They've got Huberdeau signed long-term. They've got Cole Schwint in the pipeline. They've got that. They've got that first round pick sort of sitting in conditional, whatever is going on there with the Monahan trade. But I think he'd be quite happy with just having, I wouldn't say happy, but quite okay with just using Mackenzie Weegar as a year-long rental if worse comes to worse. Had he not signed Huberdeau and it was both Huberdeau and Weegar going into this season, as potential UFAs going into next summer, I think that'd be a completely different situation. But because he's got Huberdeau signed, he's got Cole Schwindt in the pipeline, and they are in win now mode. So why would he move on from a player that's going to help them win now, especially because both him and Daryl are in the final years of their contract?
Yeah, my only thing I'm saying, I'm not saying that he is going to make a drastic panic trade. I mean, I think Treliving has always, at the very least, what you can say, Treliving has been thoughtful and methodical in his approach in improving the team. I just don't know how much he wants to go through. He wants to go through what he went through with Johnny Gaudreau. That's the only thing that I am wondering about. But it sounds to me like I'm with Devin. I think this gets done. I'm as confident of this getting done as Bo Horvat getting done for Vancouver. This will get done, and I'm not worried about it. But it is something that I was wondering about when you're thinking about defensemen that you're moving to get there. I mean,
well, I think it's valid to wonder about that. I mean, that was an uncomfortable situation for Treliving to be in. No general manager wants to face the prospect of that. So I think it's worth questioning that. But from somebody that's detached from the Flames, not fan point of view here, I based on the recent history, that doesn't seem to me like Treliving is going to be panicked much at all over that.
And I think it's a completely different situation from the Gaudreau situation, because Gaudreau was drafted by the Flames, grew up as a Flame, his pro career as a Flame. Like, it's just, Uyghur was part of the Tkachuk trade. Yeah. I think you could definitely sell it as he was a year-long rental for a team that's in win now, as opposed to losing a homegrown player.
Yeah, I can see that. I think it is an interesting situation. I think the thing that intrigues me about the Flames overall, here are my battles that I think. How they pair that defense, where they put Uyghur, I think is going to be interesting. Right side, left side, that's going to be interesting. Of course, we're not going to have Oliver Shillington due to personal reasons. Also, Andrew Panjabani is injured and he won't start camp either. That's one issue. The second thing I'm really intrigued about is Dustin Wolf's training camp. To me, he was one. I mean, yeah, he did not have a great game against the Edmonton Oilers, but overall, I don't think there's issues with Dustin Wolf. I think we know exactly what we're going to get, and I think he is. I think he's on his way to his future steps as a National Hockey League professional goaltender. And I think that this is a very interesting watch going forward with this organization, what happens and when you bring Dustin Wolf up. I think that that's going to be an interesting issue. And here's the other one.
Yeah, the Dustin Wolf situation reminds me a lot of the Thatcher Demko situation a few years back with the Canucks, because he is the heir apparent, and they do have Markstrom signed for a few more years here. And Dustin Wolf will be ready to make that step to the NHL before the Markstrom deal is up.
Yeah.
And I think what the timeline of that is that he'll stay in the AHL this year fully. Next year, he might get brought up a game or two. And then in the last 2 years of Markstrom's contract, they'll be a tandem.
Yeah.
Well, actually, what I think it'll be more than a game or two next year. I think you've got.
Well, it'll be a handful, but yeah,
I think he will. I think he will be sort of the backup, if you will, next season. Because I think what you'll see is whether it's Vladar or someone else, they'll have someone there to just sit on the bench, and because they've got both teams in Calgary, they can call Dustin Wolf up for spot starts. And I think you are right there, Dev. I think it will be he'll sort of split the backup duties, I think is a better way to put it, with a handful of games or a dozen games there to work him into the NHL.
Yeah. And then the one other thing that I'm watching, we haven't talked about him yet, but this is all I know. Everyone is criticizing and laughing at the Kevin Rooney signing. Sarah Sivian tweeted at me and said that the Calgary Flames fans will love Kevin Rooney. She went to school with Kevin Rooney. He's worked his ass off to get there. I am pulling for Kevin Rooney. Kevin Rooney is going to be my Flame guy that I am pulling for because I think he's going to show a lot better than a lot of Flame fans think. And I know that the graphers and the drawers of the graphs are going to draw a graph and tell me how bad Kevin Rooney is going to suck. I think Kevin Rooney is going to surprise you. Kevin Rooney is going to be the surprise of Calgary Flames camp. You heard it here first. I really believe that.
Right on.
I love Kevin Rooney. I honestly do. I think I'm with you, Kev. It's just he will work. Yeah, he'll work his ass off. And yeah, I'm just gonna be reiterating what Kevin just said. I love it. I think that he will be one of the big surprises for the Calgary Flames this year.
He sounds like the prototypical fourth line Daryl Sutter player.
Yep. By the way, I'm not expecting that he's going to be a superstar. I think he's going to do exactly what he is required to do. And I think he'll do it well.
He's going to pop 30 this year, Kev. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he's going to lead the league in scoring. Yeah. I'm drafting him in our fantasy draft. Kevin Rooney, I'm drafting him first. Mark
there
it.
You go.
Book it. With the Flames, is there anything else we need to touch on here?
I love how the clickbait of all this is for where is Jonathan Huberdeau going to be slotted? Is it going to be with Nazem Kadri or is it going to be with Elias Lindholm? There's always a room for a wiggle room to see who has the most chemistry, but let's get off of that. He's going to be with Elias Lindholm.
Lindholm just lost the two line mates that he had on his wings and were arguably the best line in the NHL last year. If he doesn't get Huberdeau, that feels a little bit of a slap in the face, in my opinion. I basically have Huberdeau penned in on the left wing with Lindholm. Lindholm's someone I'm going to be very intrigued to see what happens and how he produces this year, because he shot the lights out last year. He took significantly more shots than he's ever taken in the season before, and he shot at a higher shooting percentage than he is. Significant enough than his career average last season as well. And now he's lost two line mates, but he's also gaining one of the premier playmakers in the league in Jonathan Huberdeau on his wing. So it's going to be I'm very, very intrigued to see what type of season Elias Lindholm has, let alone that he finished second in Selke voting this past season. And I think the big one is who's going to be on that right wing with those two. Is it Toffoli? Or do they try and put a Mangiapane there or a Dubé there? I think that's the big one of the big. I think that's the big story for me is who's on the right wing on that top line, because I think you're going to be able to put together a middle six that makes sense, especially if Milano hits or Pelche or Phillips are able to step up. Then it looks good, but that top right wing spot right now, I just don't know. I don't know who fits there the best, and no one's jumping out to me as an ideal candidate for it.
Well, that's the word "fit" is the key word there, right? You talk about matching up players that have never played together before. It's like, well. In Lindholm and Huberdeau, is the chemistry going to be there? We're just, it's easy to assume that it's going to be there, but you never know. And then, of course, if the third line mate doesn't sort of fit in with the other two, then maybe you need to kind of blow that whole thing up and try something different.
To your point, Sean, about Lindholm, I think Lindholm will get 35 plus goals this next year. I don't want to pen that in. I'm penciling it in. But I think he'll produce on a similar level. I've been talking about this guy's shot for the past 3 years. It's absolutely crazy how fast he can get that shot. He has a 65 flex stick. It's the whippiest thing, but it makes so much sense how easy it is and how fast he's able to get that off. So I think that you'll be looking at a 35 plus goals for Lindholm. That right side, I think they'll try Toffoli at the top because why not? But I truly believe that by the end of the year, or the majority, who's going to be on that right wing, the majority of the time will be Mangiapane. They got to give him more looks on 5-on-5. He's great defensive. Well, not great. He's good defensively. So that's why he's been playing with Lindholm forever, or Backlund forever. And why the hell not? You talk about a guy who's got how many goals within even strength. It's him. And so give him that shot. And I hope Daryl does.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
in just some curiosity, I looked at shooting percentages and all that for like basically the whole league. And yes, I'm a nerd. So I looked at Lindholm. His career shooting percentage after last season was 12.6%. Last year he shot 17.9%, and he had 235 shots on net, and he never went over 200 before this season. So if he can continue on with that volume, that'll really help. And if he continues on with that volume and shoots even just at the 12.6%, that's a 30 goal pace. So I think he probably shoots a little bit above that. So I think you might be right there, Dev, at that 35.
And I think Sonny Milano is going to get a long look on the Lindholm line and the Kadri line, too. I could see Milano working with Lindholm and Huberdeau, actually. I could see that being an ideal situation. I mean, he created room for Trevor Zegras. I could see him making room for Lindholm and Huberdeau, and I think he could be aggravating enough to be on a line with Kadri and Coleman, too. I don't know. I think that he's going to get a long look at the top six.
His defensive game isn't as bad as people are making out to be. The numbers are there. He's okay. He's not great, but he's all right, and he's formidable. You know, so if he's going to be on that Kadri line, he's got to make sure that his defensive game is on par.
Yeah, well, both lines though, right? I think Lindholm, I think Daryl Sutter is going to expect him to do the same workload. Which could be an argument for not putting Huberdeau with Lindholm. That there could be that argument. That, I mean, I think you should. That's what I would do. But maybe Daryl has a different idea. But I think
Lindholm made Gaudreau look pretty good. Helped make it look good. Helped make Gaudreau look pretty solid defensively when Gaudreau that's been a knock on Gaudreau for a lot of his career as well. So I don't think it's that will stop Sutter from putting those two together.
Well, and if we're talking about lineup combination or matching, and okay, we have a defensive zone draw, our center depth just grew by a massive. It's a lot better because of Kadri, right? And before we just had Lindholm and Backlund as our top two. So the fact that you had those two guys, Lindholm and Backlund, that were very good defensively and still are, now you add Kadri, whose 200-foot game is, I think, underrated, to that lineup, then you might as well just roll the top three lines and then chuck the fourth one in there whenever you need some energy or you need a break.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting in Calgary for sure. It's going to be very interesting how this, I mean, one thing I do know, one thing I have pen in, Nazem Kadri will be glued to Connor McDavid whenever the Flames and Oilers are playing. You know that's going to happen. You know that will be a fun, entertaining part of Twitter when McDavid and Kadri face each other. That will be fun. It's going to be very interesting in Calgary what's going on there on all of their levels there. As far as Vancouver, well, this is going to be interesting. I wanted to talk a little bit about the young stars, specifically Vancouver, couple of people that really impressed me. Linus Carlson, really liked him. Thought he had command of the ice. Thought he just showed. I thought he was dynamic, especially game against the Flames. Just really like the potential of Linus Carlson. I think that's a really good ad for Vancouver. Sneaky, one of those, everyone's talking about Cap and the Patrick Allvin didn't do anything, guys. He didn't do anything. And, we signed that guy, Linus Carlson. That was a nice little, I'm not saying he's making the big club this year, but that's a good ad. And I thought our Steve Baines showed pretty well. I really thought the line of Waters, Baines, and Carlson, I thought showed a lot of chemistry against the Flames when I watched that one. And I was really, and I mean, I'm going to have my WHL hat is on again.
Yep.
But Quinn Schmiemann, I was really impressed with how he played. I think that was a plus. I wasn't surprised. Underrated defenseman in the WHL. Thought he showed really well again. I think this is a guy I think will help Abbotsford a lot. Can play both right and left. Has leadership qualities. I was pretty impressed with him overall. So those are a few guys in Vancouver in terms of the young stars that I was pretty impressed with.
Oh, you're gonna wear your WHL hat, but you ain't gonna talk about Tristan Nielsen?
Oh, I thought he showed well too.
I loved him. He's a spark plug, and he will get it. I really hope that he gets a good long look up higher up in the lineup with Abbotsford this year, because I think he's going to be an absolute pain in the ass to play against, and he's got some underrated offensive abilities too.
Yeah, he showed well too. Hello, Chris.
Hello, boys. How's it going?
Good.
Devin and showing up late.
I hope that you had a good day.
It was a day. I'll say that. Work didn't go according to plan today.
Hey, Chris, got a question for you, man.
Yep.
Are you using Just for Men for that mustache? Because it looks thicker and a little bit more girthy.
Just for you, bro. Just for you.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, that's too close. That framing is way too close.
Nice.
And speaking of doing stuff for you guys, Tyler, this beer's for you.
Yes. Nice.
Noble Pursuits.
For our audio listeners, I'm drinking a Noble Pursuits Rye IPA
from the Cabin Brewery here in Calgary.
Yeah, because when I was back in Calgary this past weekend, me and Sean did a beer swap. I brought him out some BC beer, and he gave me some Calgary beer I'd been missing out on.
There we go.
But I don't want to sidetrack this anymore. Yes, I'm here, but let's get back on track.
Well, we've been to the ditch a few times. It's okay. We're back on track. Yeah, but you're right, Tristan Nielsen. I agree with you, Sean. He also showed well. So Neil Subban, I thought played pretty solid as well. So,
the Canucks were a bit of an older team, and it felt like they played with a bit of a chip on their shoulder, because they didn't have there was all the talk just right before it where the Canucks don't have a first round pick in this tournament and all that. But I think there was they showed up and played and outworked the opposition.
Yeah. In terms of what to expect in terms of Canucks camp, I think a few. Let's start with defense, because that seemed to be the one area that I think fans were expecting more to come out of this. But I'm going to toss something at this situation here. For those there seems to be some people a little upset that Quinn Hughes is going to have to move to the right side, or OEL is going to have to move to the right side.
Upset?
We're probably
whoa. Upset, really?
Yeah. Well,
okay, I hadn't sensed upset. I mean, maybe disagreeing or concerned, but upset's I just wanted to make sure I understand this right.
Yeah,
I've definitely seen some. Well, to borrow Chris's phrase, Canucks Twitter will Canucks Twitter, and they will.
Yeah, but upset over what? Taking your best defenseman and utilizing him to in such a way that the other defense look better?
well, you didn't get that right shot defenseman, Tyler. You couldn't. You didn't acquire that because your cap is in trouble, Tyler.
Upset because management didn't do anything.
Yeah, but so I mean, you know, those people that are upset forgot that Eric Gudbranson was signed for 4 years and $4 million a season. Can you imagine Canucks Twitter if that happened in here? Could you imagine?
We didn't want him back.
How about a Nick Leddy? That's a right shot. That's not a right shot option. He's played the right side. Would that have been a good signing? He got what did he get? 3, 4, and 3.5.
I mean, it doesn't change. They're also on the UFA side where they're older, and what the Canucks are looking for is someone that can grow with the Quinn Hughes and Jack Rathbone age group.
Yeah, let me keep going because there was Ben Sherratt. That was an option out there. Wait, there was Justin Schultz. Did you want 32-year-old Justin Schultz? That was what the market of the right shot defenseman looked like in this offseason. What the heck was out there for the Canucks to grab? There's none of the guys I just mentioned would have improved the right side of the Vancouver Canucks defense. None of them. Zip. Zero. Nada. And you sure as hell are not going to pay them the prices that you ended up paying them. Like literally the right side of the defense, if you're going to the grocery store right now, we're talking about the inflation, everything going up 40%. That's what's going up 40% in the grocery store is the right shot defenseman. Like, it's just, to me, it's almost by doing little, you've actually probably have improved your defense more by moving a Quinn Hughes or an OEL or a Travis Dermott over to the right side. May be the more shrewder move than actually acquiring that right shot defenseman that simply wasn't available to the Canucks. Not what they want. And I don't think anyone is suggesting, I don't know if I've heard Mackenzie Weegar, I haven't heard anyone say, why didn't the Canucks get Mackenzie Weegar? That's not, and there was also John Klingberg maybe, but that there wasn't a lot out there.
No, and I think part what happened too is when a lot of people heard that they were thinking about moving Quinn Hughes over to the right side, they thought it would be more of a permanent sort of situation. But I think it's going to be a lot more fluid. And I think from what it sounds to me, and it's something that I was hoping for, is that we're going to see them have a little more fluidity within the pairs. We know that Quinn Hughes and Luke Schenn work together. Luke Schenn probably playing higher up in the lineup than would be ideal, but it works. So then you know that OEL and Myers are at least a passable pairing. But if you want to try and tweak it so it's a little bit better and you can move the puck out a little bit better, and I honestly want to see OEL with a little bit more of a stable partner, because you don't necessarily, I don't think having Tyler Myers, the Chaos Giraffe, roaming around the ice really helps put OEL in the right situation to succeed. But which is I think why they've actually brought in someone like a Danny DeKeyser, because we don't know, and we also don't know where Tucker Poolman's at as well. Like, he dealt with migraines and concussion issues last year. Is he fully healthy? That throws another option on the right side. But say he's not available, and they've got Dermott and Rathbone and DeKeyser sort of playing for that last spot on the left side there, or even a couple spots there if they decide to move Quinn Hughes to the right side. I don't know. I just want to see more fluidity and more options there, and trying to find what works instead of just sticking with what was okay last year. And just because you didn't go out and make a big splash on acquiring a blue liner, whether it was UFA or a trade, doesn't mean that this team can't be better defensively this year. And doesn't mean that you can't look at how you can tweak the blue line pairings to try and make it better. And moving Quinn Hughes over to the right side in specific situations, say on the offensive zone, power play, or loading up a top pair with OEL and Quinn Hughes to near the end of the game, say you're pushing and you need a goal. I think that's having that option and knowing that it works is huge. And everything from the interviews at the preseason golf tournament, the Jake Milford, to what was said today at the press conferences, I think they are looking at more flexible, fluid defense core as opposed to strict pairings.
Considering the overall situation on defense, it probably is the smartest way of going about it, since there was really no way of kind of actually upgrading without severely overpaying or paying old guys. So yeah, I'm kind of down with that philosophy.
As far as the comment that Sean made earlier about Luke Shen playing higher in the pecking order on defense than ideal, just to play with Quinn Hughes. I mean, we saw that with Jordy Ben as well when he was still with the Canucks. So that's just how good Quinn is. And I believe there was some kind of a funny quote out of the press tour there today about how everybody wants to play with Quinn. That was Oliver Ekman-Larsson saying that. So, imagine if Quinn can make that transition over to the right side and still be very effective, then whoever he's playing with now, it's a left shot defenseman, has the potential to look really solid out there. And then that gives the coach so many options.
Kevin?
No, he's having computer issues.
Oh, he is? Okay. Well, sorry. I didn't realize. I was just looking at something. Yeah, I think for me, I'm interested. I long wanted an OEL Quinn Hughes pairing. I wanted that last year. I thought that would be a great pairing, but everyone was like, "No, let's not do that." I think that this is something that you can try. Both of them can play both sides of the ice. I think that's something that you can be creative with. And Quinn Hughes is a guy, I think you're right. I think Quinn Hughes is a player that a lot of players want to play with. He's a dynamic defenseman. I don't think it's going to be an issue if he's playing left or right side. It's just and I think is it not unreasonable to have expect Quinn Hughes to make a bigger jump this year? Like overall?
I think do you mean like just being the bona fide, like absolute without question dominating number one defenseman?
I think he's about to step into that more. Like he is I'm not saying he's not a number one defenseman, but I think he's going to take that next step. I think he's going to take a Heiskanen step. I think he's going to take a Makar step. Like, I'm not saying he's winning the Norris, but I think where those players
a significant tier up.
I see he's going to go a significant tier up, and I'm going to say something. I think he's a future captain.
It's interesting. I think they did ask him to just take that next step as being a professional, and that's not saying he wasn't doing all that work before, because I mean, his dad was a high-end coach, so he knows what it takes to be successful. I think they just said, look, it's time to it's time. You're doing a good job, but it's time to take it to the next level.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he alluded to that in his 32 Thoughts interview.
Yep. And I think that's very fair. And I think it's going to be I think we will see another level from him this year.
Yeah. As far as the other parts of this, I think the other question, the big one here, the other big defensive question overall is what you do with Jack Rathbone. I think that I believe it was Jim Rutherford say that the intention is to have Jack Rathbone start the season in Vancouver. So now you've got OEL, you've got Jack Rathbone in there. You've got a few other options in there competing for that bottom pair spot. Sounds like this is a bit different of a situation than a Juuso Välimäki, just to put this on a level of how I'm processing this. Seems to me that Rathbone has made all the steps and is, I think, ready to go and give a good, at least it wouldn't surprise me if he starts the season in Vancouver. It also wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't and is called up later. And it wouldn't surprise me if he's called up, plays a few games in the NHL, they bring him down to the AHL for more seasoning, and we see a little bit later. I think this is also going to have to do with see what they decide to do with Travis Dermott. What is his camp? Danny DeKeyser, what is his camp going to be? You also got on the right side, you've got Tucker Pullman, and you also got Kyle Burrows, who played pretty well last year overall. He, for everything that happened, I don't think that he was. I think that he's a guy that you could use in certain situations as well. So I don't know what you're expecting with Jack Rathbone, but he is going to play some in Vancouver. How much he plays in Vancouver, I think, is the interesting question.
I think they really do want to get a solid preview out of him at the NHL level. So I would not be surprised if he gets the full 9-game kind of preview window, but before they actually make the decision on whether they're going to keep him up or send him down. That also plays into the fact of what you guys were saying as far as like how these other defensemen perform during training camp and preseason. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Rathbone is waiver exempt, so he doesn't have to go through them to go down to Abbotsford. But I think it's you look at again there is a path for him to make the team. I think there is an expectation that he pushes. Whether or not they decide to keep him up at the start of the season or not, I think he still will get a decent amount of games this year.
Yeah, Tyler?
I totally agree.
The only question I would have is who you pair him with, because if you're not pairing OEL with the Chaos Giraffe, I'm not sure Jack Rathbone should go with the Chaos Giraffe either.
Ideally, that would be another spot for Luke Shen or Tucker Pullman if he's healthy.
Yeah,
I guess we're under the assumption he's going to be a Chaos Giraffe no matter who he's paired with. Sometimes I wonder if he's more willing to take some chances there depending on who he's played with and if he's got a stronger partner backing him up. But,
yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. I might be reaching with that one.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be the interesting part of how that is all done and who's paired with who. But at least I think there's competition at camp. I think that's the one thing you can say. Is it the greatest defense in the world? No. Is it competition? Yes. Does that help? Yes, I think so. Well, and this could be a defense that grows over time, over the year as well. So we'll have to see on that part.
And then there also was the rumors out there that the Canucks are very interested in an Ethan Bear.
Right.
As per IMAC.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good option to look at. I don't know what the acquisition cost is going to be. I know people are kind of throwing around Niels Höglander. I wouldn't do that. I think that would be a very short-sighted and bad move to make. It's not something I think Alvin will make.
Even with the glutton that we or like the glutton of our scoring wingers that we have, you don't think he's somewhat expendable at this point?
Not for an Ethan Bear.
No, you wouldn't. I would. No, you would not. I would
You
not
feel like
do that at all.
Too high of a risk of getting burned on that?
Yeah. You're looking at someone who I think got a little bit of a sophomore slump last year. If you go back and listen to a lot of the comments that Boudreau made, there was some about his 200-foot game, but there was a lot of it I think was just like he was so frustrated because he kept getting chances and couldn't score. And I think we are going to see a bit of a bounce. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bit of a bounce back season from him.
Especially if he knows how much pressure he's under to make this roster.
And it doesn't matter what line he's on. If he can find a spot in that top 9, it doesn't matter what line he's on. He's going to be playing with good talent. So the opportunity is there for Nils Höglander to have a good year. So I think but the other thing with Ethan Bear, he also makes 2.2 on the cap. So if Carolina is willing to do a cap in, cap out trade, and that, which is going to be looking like a Dickinson or a Pearson type deal, great. But if they're not willing to do that, which I don't think they would. I think you have to just be a little more patient. I think Albions just have to continue to be patient and hope that something shakes loose, or maybe something happens with the waiver wire.
I think Pearson is too highly coveted by this management group just because of how consistent and stable he is in the lineup, no matter where he's put. Dickinson, I wonder if there's not going to be the interest there just because of how much his stock has fallen over the past season, or since at least he's become a Canuck.
Yeah, that's it. Pearson's 3.25, Dickinson's 2.65. I just with Höglander, I think it's too much of a risk, and I think it's better to be patient here, and even just like when we talked about the Flames and how I think that the Flames are going to be a little bit more I would expect the Flames to be a little bit patient with that sort of last right wing spot in their top 9. I think the Canucks are going to be I think the Canucks would benefit from being a little bit patient here, and not forcing the hand on acquiring a right shot defenseman just for the sake of acquiring a right shot defenseman.
Yeah, I absolutely would not do it. Look, Ethan Bear's career high is 21 points in 71 games in 2020 with the Oilers. 8 points in 43 games in 2021 in the shortened season, 14 points in 58 games last year with the Carolina Hurricanes. I can't, 25 years old. It doesn't feel to me Nils Höglander would fit. A Tanner Pearson I could see. I'm with you, Sean. A Tanner Pearson, I can see that draft pick maybe, but I don't think you're giving up a young player in the lineup for an Ethan Bear. I just cannot see that. That would be a very short-sighted move in my mind. And I like Ethan Bear. I think he would be a good ad, but not overpaying for him.
Yeah.
As far as the forward part of this, speaking of Höglander, speaking of Pearson, speaking of Dickinson, I think this is going to be. This is a pretty. I will say that I think that this is a pretty important camp for Nils Höglander. I know that you're right, Sean, that Boudreau was more frustrated with Höglander, but I think going into this camp, you've got Will Lockwood that I think deserves a long look. You've got Jason Dickinson, and he had a brutal year last year. I'm not going to I don't think that this was the year that he wanted to have. I still think there's something valuable with Jason Dickinson. I still think he's a guy that can skate well on the bottom 6. I think that for a team that's wanting to improve skating-wise, that's a guy that you will want there. And Tanner Pearson is a reliable player. I think that this is going to be very interesting to see what happens with Tanner Pearson, because I think there's a part of me that's surprised that we're seeing Tanner Pearson at Canucks training camp this year. I think this is a pretty important camp for Nils Höglander. I don't think that this spot on this team is as easy, is as cemented as some may think.
Well,
I think that there's a battle
than that, Kevin. I mean, if he doesn't have a good showing here and make the team, his future as an NHL player is in doubt too. So, yeah, I mean, came in the Frankenstein year, if we can call it that, now with the North Division, and it looked okay. And then last year was certainly a drop off and not really in favor with the coach. So now it's kind of shit or get off the pot time for the guy. He's got to impress here, or he may lose his spot and never get it back. I think it's very important training camp for Niels.
It is. I don't see Lockwood as a sort of top 9 option there. with the way they've got set up. I think Lockwood and Dakota Joshua are going to be more players that might be able to fight their way onto the fourth line.
Crash and bang fourth line wingers.
Yeah. So and I think Höglander is better suited in working within that top nine, and I think they will give him that shot. But if he doesn't show well enough to keep that, then does he fit on that fourth line? I think that might be tough. But yeah, he has to prove it. He definitely does. But we're talking about a guy who had 13 goals and 27 points in 56 games in his rookie season, which was pretty solid. And then he got 10 goals last year in 60 games. So it's not like he's not producing. It's just that I think everyone knows that there or feels that there's another level that he can take his game to.
Yeah. There's definitely don't disagree that there's not talent there. But he has to show it. That's where I'm kind of with Tyler on this one for sure. I think the intriguing forward. I'll tell you who I'm pulling for in a second. But the intriguing forward, I think, is Andrei Kuzmenko. I think everyone is kind of intrigued what he's going to bring. I think this is it's a fascinating discussion to me because we talk about entitlement and we talk about players that are not entitled. It sort of feels like Kuzmenko was promised a spot, and that kind of concerns me. That kind of concerns me that he's been promised a spot on this team.
I don't think he was. I think he was promised a legit shot. They were to put him in a position to succeed, but I don't think he was promised one.
I think they said that, or I'll paraphrase here, but I think they said, we can write your name in pencil in the top six, just not in ink yet. Like Sean said, they're willing to afford him the opportunity in the top six should he prove that he belongs there. But if he doesn't belong there, he's not guaranteed that just because we were the team that gave him the most promise over the offseason.
Okay. I'll be interested. I think that
everything that's coming out though is like everyone's impressed with him.
Yep, that's what I'm hearing. That's what I was about to say. Everyone seems impressed with him. So maybe my cynicism is offside. It looks like, according to what Boudreau said, he's going to play on the left side. Where he plays, I think that's interesting. We do know that it'll be Horvat, Miller, and Pettersson up the middle. In terms of Pettersson, I think that this is also an interesting camp for him because when JT Miller was signed, Bruce Boudreau said that JT Miller is the number one center. And I'm not saying that he took a shot at Pettersson, but this is, I think this is another guy that they want to see a big step from Pettersson. I'm not saying that they are unhappy with Pettersson, but I think Rutherford and Alvin and all of that management group wants to see Pettersson take another significant step.
Yeah,
and I think it's there.
I mean, they're like all the fans praying that he does something because their playoff hopes are not very good if Petey's not to some extent carrying the team at times, but not to put too much pressure on the guy. As far as JT Miller and looking at him like a number one center, is that what I heard you say?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, you can look at that like a bit of a challenge to Elias, and maybe Elias would take it that way, but it's also coach speak. I mean, coaches hate labeling lines 1, 2, and 3, so I don't.
That's fair.
If you ask a lot of coaches around the league that have some good center depth, they'd say they have 3 number one centers. So don't make too much of that, but if it is a little motivational tactic for Elias Pettersson, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, and we're talking about
Go ahead, Sean.
And he was talking about JT Miller, who put up 99 points last season, right? That's number one center territory. But you're also looking at Petey, who had a quote unquote down year and still ended up scoring 32 goals.
Yeah, I was going to say if they could if this lights a fire under him, they're basically just hoping that they can continue what he had going in the second half of last season. Because I think, I'm not sure if the stat is absolutely correct, but I think in like the last 14 games of the season, he had 13 goals. Like if he can keep up that sort of pace in the start of this season and just kind of storm out of the gates, then that's mission accomplished by the management as far as trying to get him motivated.
And I think there is definitely some motivation tactics there, as well as we go back to what Quinn Hughes said about the management team asking him to take that next level as a pro. I bet you they had the same conversation with Elias Pettersson as well, because that's what they want. They can't remember that we're talking about Rutherford and Alvin, who came from Pittsburgh, where they had Sid the Kid sort of lead the way and just and drive the team, because he worked his ass off day in, day out, every practice, every game, and everyone else, he dragged everyone else with him. And that's what they want from Hughes. That's what they want from Petey. That's what they want from Bo. That's what they want from all the core players.
In this division, in this Pacific division, where you have a McDavid Draisaitl in Edmonton, you have we've been talking about the center depth up the middle in Calgary, Lindholm, Kadri, Backlund. You've got I'm going to be intrigued what Jack Eichel is going to do in Vegas. You've got Trevor Zegras in Anaheim. You've got Anze Kopitar in Los Angeles. You've got Thomas Hertl in San Jose. Every team in this division, save now, and Jared McCann in Seattle. So pretty solid up the middle. You need the team that wins this division, I think, is going to have the best group of center play. And we have to include Curtis Lazar in that conversation as well, right? He is a person that I think, so up the middle, whoever is the best up the middle is going to win this division. That's how I am handicapping that.
And not much, gets talked about with face-offs until you lose a key one in a key situation in a game. But that was certainly far from an area of strength for the Canucks last season, and certainly fits in with what you're saying there, Kevin.
Yeah, I forget which player it was that was interviewed, but one of the players on the Canucks roster last season said that like Bo was taking way too many. Actually, I think it was Quinn from that 32 Thoughts interview. Bo was taking way too many defensive zone face-offs, and the addition of Lazar is going to be huge as far as taking that burden off of Bo's shoulders.
Yeah, because it had the trickle-down effect is if you lose the face-off and you get stuck out there, then that really kind of starts screwing around with the coach's plans for deployment, right?
Yeah, that's where I was going to go exactly where Chris was in the Lazar addition, especially because he's a right shot, so that helps with a certain specific face-offs there. So, and but there's I'm really the other thing that Boudreau said in the presser today was that what we see tomorrow with the lines is what he is wanting for game one in October. So I can't wait to see what will be out there, because I'm sure as any fan, everyone's gone through and tried to create lines, and you've probably gone through 3-4 different iterations at the very least to try and to figure out what would you want to see. And I think we've seen JT Miller, I'm pretty sure, do his very best to basically petition to have Podkolzin on his line. The other thing with the Boudreau and Elias brought it up in the chat is that it looks like they're going to try Garland on the left wing as well.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really, I can't wait to see what the lineups are, because you've got, do you want to potentially have a more of a Horvat in a offensive role, or you want him to be a little more defensive? Or is that going to be more of a, we all know how, is that something that they're expecting from Petey this year? Because we've seen that he doesn't shy away from that. And when he's on his game, he doesn't shy away from playing defensively and being a bit of someone who could be in a few years, at least maybe even on the outskirts of the Selke conversation. But there's just so many different options here. And there could be one line there that could be just a matchup killer, because whether it's the Miller, whatever line it is, could be a matchup killer because they could be facing off against on the ice against third and fourth lines of the other teams that don't quite have the same depth that the Canucks have up front.
Well, I think that's so. Let's good point. So with Pod, because of Garland on the left side, I actually like that. I actually think Connor Garland is a better left winger than right winger. I think he's more comfortable there. I think his skating style works. I think the way he approaches the puck works. I think the way he approaches play works. The question is where you play him. And I guess where do you play Podkolzin? Do you play him on the left side or do you play him on the right side? And then you got Mikheyev. You got to put somewhere there too.
Well, if you've got Kuzmenko and Garland on the left, so it leaves one more left wing spot in the top 9 available. Assuming, let's make the assumption that Kuzmenko is what everyone is talking about, and he'll be in that top 9. You're going to have Besser on the right, so
he's pinned in with Pettersson, though, right? That's a pen, right? We talked about that earlier.
So then you've got, I think my latest iteration. What I want to see. This is what I want to see. I don't know if this is what we see from the Canucks and Bruce Boudreau tomorrow. I want to see Höglander on the left with Pettersson and Besser. I think that could be a very good offensive line. And then I think you do put Horvat. I think he might be more of the best option for if you're going to create a bit of a quote unquote matchup line in your top 9. And I think you put him with Mikheyev on the right and Garland on the left. And that line could still be good offensively. And then, which leaves Kuzmenko with Miller at center and Podkolzin on the right, which could be that could be a matchup killer. You could imagine that line playing against third or fourth lines.
Sorry, I just want to make sure. Did you say Miller with Kuz and Pods?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the line that I'm salivating the most over, because we already know that Miller wants Pods on his line, and I'm not sure if you guys have been paying attention, but just off of social media, Pods and Kuzmenko are already tight as thieves. So I just those two Russians on that line with Miller. I want to see that so bad.
Chris is all over the bromance already.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'll leave the technical stuff as who's on the left and who's on the right side to you guys. I'm here just on the eye test level fan.
Yeah, but again, I'm just going to reiterate, 2 of them have to show well. But I don't.
Yeah, but that we're talking about what I want to see.
Okay, that's fair.
I did preface that.
The one thing I will say though is I do want Bo Horvat to play with some damn good wingers. It's about damn time that happened.
And Garland and Mikheyev, I would say, are
that's
good
a good
wingers for him too.
Yeah, and I think that fits. And then I think you have your Lazar with the gang. Lazar and the gang there with Dickinson.
Laser in the gang.
Yeah, Laser in the gang. So that will be interesting. The other story, just as a side note, I think this is Spencer Martin is getting a pretty long look as the backup, and I think people were really high on him. This is a guy that I think Canucks management's hoping is taking another step by. And it is important to have a backup goalie. You can't expect Thatcher Demko to play all 80 games, so you've got to get something out of Spencer Martin. Demko got hurt last year. That was also, as much as the start played into the Canucks not getting into the playoffs, the fact that Demko got hurt didn't help the situation either. Not that Spencer Martin was terrible. I'm not saying that because I actually thought he showed well, but the struggles we had the struggles with Halak as well. So that's I think that they're hoping for a good camp from Martin.
We're on a TV show here.
Oh, my door opened.
We're all making faces like, what is he doing?
I can't.
See, so this is what happens when you put radio people on TV. They
Yeah,
sort of forget that.
I just steer us back out of the ditch and
We
get
have
us back
audio
on topic.
and video, Kevin.
Yeah.
But to get us out of the ditch, though, I think that's
We're
probably
winning.
why they got Delia, because he's an insurance package for if something goes wrong with Martin not being as good as we're hoping he's going to be.
Yeah. I think we've all come to the realization that the next what they're hoping that Silovs can in the next year or two can be sort of more of the long term option there. But yeah, they have to get there first, and I think they'll get a good feel on where Delia and Martin are. And if they have to, I think there might be a backup on the waiver wire or available elsewhere if needed. But I from what I saw from Spencer Martin in that small sample size, it looks like he's got he reads the play well, and he's got the technical aspect down, and he's become why am I drawing a blank on the goalie coach name? Ian
Clark.
Ian Clark. There it is. Yeah, he's become an Ian Clark guy.
Yeah, I was actually going to add on. I was basically going to say that exact same point, that his buy-in with Ian Clark has been, I think, huge as far as his initial success with the Canucks. Like, I think he's due to regress a little bit, because what was his save percentage when playing for the Canucks last season? Like .950 or something like that.
They're not going to have that.
Yeah, he's due to regress a little bit, but hopefully he's still going to be consistently solid enough that if he gets those 15, 20, maybe 25 starts this season to maybe try and give Demko a little bit of a break, I hope that, that he's solid enough that he's going to be a decent number 2.
Yeah, of course, with any goalie, the longer that they play at the NHL level, and there's more of a sample size there for other teams to start scouting tendencies, then you start to see that regression back to the what should be the normal occur. So yeah, he came in and burst onto the scene fairly hot there last year as an emergency option, so to speak, for the Canucks, but doesn't mean it's going to translate this year.
The two guys I'm pulling for, though, Dakota Joshua, I'm pulling for him. I think that was a good signing. I hope he has a good camp. And I am pulling for Curtis Lazar. This is a guy that's been through a lot. I think there was a lot of high expectations when he was drafted early in his career. It didn't work the way that he was supposed to. And then he's found a way to adapt his game to be more of a defensive center, and I'm pulling for him. I hope that he has a really good year, and I hope he has a good camp. So those are the two kind of guys I'm cheering for.
Yeah, I think we'll see. I think we'll see Joshua be I think he might be the 13th or 14th forward, depending on how many they decide to carry versus the defense. And I think he'll get a long look on that fourth line.
Anything else to discuss with the Canucks?
I think we're good. I think there is one thing. I just when I was listening to the media availability today, instead of having like the meaningful games in March, meaningful games in April sort of talk that we heard in years past, they were saying the P word. They were saying playoffs. It's basically playoffs or bust with this team, and I like that. I like hearing that, even if it is just sort of, if you're a little bit cynical and this is sort of just saying the right things at the beginning of the season. I like hearing how adamant they were about it. Bruce definitely
came across as a theme.
Yeah.
And when Mr. Negativity himself, Drancer, has given them a 45% chance to make the playoffs, yeah, I think the outlook might be higher than last season.
Yeah, it's probably the one that stood out the most for me actually was Thatcher Demko checking himself. He said he was referring to if we make the playoffs, and his when we make the playoffs. Which maybe revealed that there was a bit of a public relations strategy cooked up for this whole presser today. But I mean, come on, this group's been together for so long, and they've just they showed so much promise last year, came up short in their fight for the playoffs. So now it's got to be that this year. If they said anything less than that, it would be troubling. But it is definitely noteworthy how out of the way they went to emphasize the expectation internally that they're going to make the playoffs.
We are going to do an extensive Pacific Division preview. We're going to touch on all 4 of the divisions. That's the plan, and we'll dig into the storylines a little bit more about and as we go forward here. The Flames, of course, we've talked about them in win now mode. Where are the Canucks? And there's a conversation to be had about what the conversation is inside Rogers Arena and what the fans are expecting. I think I think that deserves a bit more time than we'll give it tonight. And we've expanded a lot on training camp specifically. So we'll leave that. That's a future conversation. Is that fair to say?
Yep.
Yeah. We're missing Devin, and I know that he's having issues with the computer, so hopefully we can get him back. But there were some other things that happened, and I want to go back here and to a story that happened last week. Blake Wheeler, and I want to be careful. I'm going to be a little bit cautious of how this was worded, because the headline was he was stripped of his captaincy. I hate that word. I hate that how that comes across. It sounds so brutal. It
reads like a harsh demotion to you, Kev.
Yes.
But is it not that? Like I don't think it was Blake volunteering to hand it over. So
my read on it was that Bones, who is a very experienced, well-liked coach, very well respected, came in and said, we clearly need to shake things up. Clearly, what happened last season was not something that you guys want to repeat. So let's rip the Band-Aid off now and try and figure out what we need to do moving forward. And maybe he viewed not having a captain and letting a new leader take charge as part of that.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of went out of their way to spin it a little bit, like they want other people to take on more of a leadership role, which is, I guess they're going to sort of, is this a phasing out of Blake Wheeler as a Jet altogether? It's awkward whenever you do this, and that came across awkward as well. So I'll give Blake credit for professionalism. I mean, we've seen changes happen before in other places where they've even had more success. For example, like to me, it was always perplexing when the seat moved from Dustin Brown to Anze Kopitar in LA.
Joe Thornton in San Jose.
Yeah. I think with Joe, I had my feeling on that is he was on board with that idea, maybe finding it to be too much on the shoulders there. But
I feel like that was the same with Dustin Brown too. Honestly.
Maybe, yeah. I don't get that sense with Blake Wheeler, but Blake's, at least from his media conferences, a pretty abrasive kind of guy. And maybe in the dressing room, again, we're not in the dressing room, but, maybe the new coaching staff determined there's just maybe it's a little too negative to be creating some culture of success there, so they're deciding to make the change. We'll see how it progresses, but anytime you do that, it's kind of saying, well, we want to let a new leader emerge. It's kind of hard when the old guy's sitting there still.
Yeah, that's definitely a fair point. I know that I think it was Merrick who hypothesized that like maybe he was running the room too hot and like was being a little bit too harsh on other guys, and that it was like causing a bad feeling in the room. So maybe this is.
I think if you go back to the postseason press availabilities, media availabilities, when all the comments that Mark Scheifele made, I think that was definitely a signal to me that there was definitely some locker room issues, and I think they wanted to make a move. But Kevin Cheveldayoff is. We talk about how patient Brad Treliving is. Kevin Cheveldayoff is even more patient. So I don't think he wasn't going to be forced into a move, but I think at the end of the day, he was like, with Rick Bowness coming in, I think they were like, I think they needed to make a move, and because they couldn't do anything significant player personnel wise, roster wise, they had to make this leadership move.
Yeah,
and I know Kev, you're trying to sort of, it does sound harsh, but I think strip is the right word here.
Well, Bowness has done this before. He basically transitional leadership happened before our very eyes in Dallas with Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn going with Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson, and that group. So this isn't necessarily a surprise that Bowness has done it. It's hard to argue that Winnipeg did not at the very least have one of the most awkward off seasons overall. The Mark Scheifele comments, the Blake Wheeler situation, the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation. Let's not forget that. This was a guy that reportedly was insistent on going to Montreal and only Montreal. And he said he wasn't gonna sign long term in Winnipeg. Excuse me, as I sneeze on TV now. This stupid radio guy. It was an awkward offseason in Winnipeg. It's going to be really fascinating to see how things start in Winnipeg.
Yeah, we talked about how like Canucks and Canucks fans are frustrated that they weren't able to get something done over the offseason. I'm pretty sure the Jets feel the exact same way.
And even more so, because at least the Canucks still had it. Well,
true.
With Kuzmenko and
McKay, and Lazar. Yeah.
The Jets have added
Sam Gagner.
Yeah, scroll down the roster. Sam Gagner.
Yeah.
So, and don't forget about Big Save Dave.
And David Rittich. That's right.
But I if they couldn't make a roster move that made sense, they must have just felt that like it's time to shake things up and see what happens. And I feel like the winters are long in Winnipeg as is. I think this might just make them a little longer.
Yeah. Let's not forget the whole Barry Trotz chase as well.
Yep.
Yeah. The fruitless attempt at getting Trotz in Winnipeg.
Yeah, that was not a noble pursuit for Winnipeg.
No.
So that is going to be that Central Division. I'm looking forward to previewing that division because I may have a controversial view on one particular team that did some things that I don't think are as good as people think. But that's a teaser. Speaking of Central Division, Nathan MacKinnon is $12.6 million a year richer for the next 8 years. Didn't hear about a contract that maybe I missed it because I was busy, but I didn't hear a lot of people saying that this contract's not going to age well for the 27-year-old Nathan MacKinnon. I guess after 30, he's going to be fine. But JT Miller, we're not sure. But Nathan MacKinnon, he's going to be a superstar until about 62.
It's Nathan MacKinnon there, Kev. Like he's a top 5 talent in this in the league.
Totally agree with you.
I know Kevin's being sarcastic here. I mean, it's a valuable point. It's funny how when you're talking like upper echelon of star players, how that
also you have to reward Nate after the patience he shown and the hometown discount he took for them to get where they got.
It's a well-earned contract.
Yeah. And it doesn't kick in until next year. He's still 6.3 on the cap this year.
I mean, and if you're Colorado, and I mentioned this on the news pack yesterday, you're not going for one cup. You're going for a couple. You need Nathan MacKinnon. You do that for the next 8 years for Nathan MacKinnon. It's a no-brainer that they did it. I'm not complaining about the contract. You have to do it. There's no question about it. But this is one of those everyone was talking about these contracts that you're giving to almost 30-year-olds and how much you're giving. And I heard it for others, but I didn't hear it for Nathan MacKinnon. And that's why I took that little shot. And I know that's different players, but if you're going to have the age conversation, let's have let's not be convenient about it. Right. That's all I'm saying.
What do you think was Nate's ask? Did he think he asked for his salary to be doubled or to be the highest paid player in the league and outdo McDavid for AAV for cap hit?
I honestly think that Nathan asked for an entire land in Denver where he can grow all of his vegetables. I think that was his ask. They couldn't do it because Russell Wilson's there, so they said 12.6 a year the next 8 years.
Yeah, it kind of looks like when it is 12.6 and Connor McDavid's AAV is 12.5 that was very deliberate to have the appearance of being the top paid guy. But
I think if you look at the actual amount that he made on the last contract to this contract, it's exactly double too.
Let's see, here's his total. Yeah, he's 44.1 on the last one. He's making more, but yeah, it's the AAV on his last cap. The current contract is 6.3, so he did double it.
12.6, yeah.
Maybe that's a future conversation. Mackinnon versus McDavid. Who's better? I've already pissed the Oiler fans off enough with Cale Makar. Can I piss them off?
I was about to say, McKinnon's not even the best player on his team.
He's not. You're right. Just to quickly touch on the Evander Kane, he did settle with the Sharks. I think for Canucks fans, I think the anger here is that the cap hit is retroactive to the San Jose Sharks. I think from that, just all I can say is I imagine from the San Jose Sharks, I think that this is exactly what they did. Thank you. Goodbye. We're done.
Yeah.
He's someone else's problem now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say on that. Is let's leave that one there.
Yeah.
But then yesterday we had 3 retirements, a combination of 54 years of hockey experience retired in one day. Zdeno Chara, 24.
Which took up almost half of that.
Yep. And then you had PK Subban and Keith Yandle. And I did put the poll up on Shifts and Pucks of who belongs in the Hall of Fame. I think it's a no-brainer. Zdeno Chara next is first ballot. He's in there, no question about it. PK Subban, I would put PK Subban in the Hall of Fame because of who other else has gotten in. I think PK. I think you put him in. I put him in.
Like I said in our group chat, he burned very brightly, but he had a significantly shorter career than most other Hall of Famers. So that's what makes it borderline for me. But just due to his personality and everything, I have a feeling that he's going to squeak in.
I've always really liked PK Subban, but I personality and the way he played and everything. But it could go either way with him. I think for the reasons that Chris outlined. I guess we could say he is an Ontario guy originally, which maybe helps his case when it comes to the subjective nature of this process. But if he gets in, I think that's a ways down the road when there's more time to reflect on his place in the game. Zdeno Chara is a pretty well sure thing.
Yeah, the length of the career is the biggest one there for Subban, I think. You look at his accolades, Norris Trophy winner, nominated 2 other times in the top 3, 2-time first All-Star team, 1-time second All-Star team, let alone he was been a big part of the discussion of hockey for a lot of his career. A lot of people like to say that the 1,000 game mark is one of the gateways that you have to get to be in contention for the Hall of Fame. He didn't get there, and honestly wasn't even close.
How short was he?
He played 834. So it's a very interesting debate. He's right on the cusp. I think he might be one of those guys that just gets in 3rd or 4th try, just because someone likes him, type deal.
Basically, what we hope happened to McGillney, but never did.
Yeah.
He could be a guy that they end up debating for a long time why he isn't in. I could see that, but I would put him in. But he would be my vote. But I can see both sides of that. Keith Yandle is another interesting one. He set the record for consecutive games played. which the previous one happens to be in the Hall of Fame, and Doug Jarvis. But I have the sense this is not going to be a first. It will be a long time before Keith Yandle gets in. I don't see that one happening instantly, if at all.
That stat alone does not a Hall of Famer make.
No.
As impressive as it was.
Yeah, he played 16 years, 1,109 games. The big one for me, and yes, plus minus is a flawed stat, but when you're dash 103 on your career, there's a reason why there was the saying that you can't win with 6 Keith Yandles on the team. You need a balance. Yeah, he put up a lot of points, but I don't see it as a Hall of Fame career. He doesn't have any accolades. Like the closest he got was for the Norris was 5th one year back in 2010, 2011. So
if he gets in, I'll end up being more pissed that he got in over someone else.
It's a really good career, but it's not a Hall of Fame career.
It's a Ring of Honor worthy.
He's gonna get his jersey retired in the Mullet Arena down in Arizona.
Shouldn't Cody Eakin be playing in Arizona?
No, because with Cody Eakin, you just turn him sideways, and he's almost the Flames logo. So,
yeah.
Well, also being pointed out to us here by Dylan. I know we don't have the comment up on the screen, but Curtis Gabriel, of course, a much lesser known name than the ones we just talked about, but at the age of 29, announcing his retirement from professional hockey. Played, trying to find it here quickly. Played with the Devil Sharks and Blackhawks, 51 career games. I guess just his body not letting him continue in a statement that he put out, but we wish the best of luck to Curtis as well.
Sorry, you said Dylan's comment said Stanley Cup champ, but the teams that you listed, I don't think were Cup winners in any time recent past.
I don't know the full story on him there, but
yeah, I think we're missing some information there.
Hang on. I'm just looking something up here. He played in Minnesota.
Wondering if he was part of the 2015 Blackhawks, perhaps. No, he was more recently with him, so not too sure there. But was a 3rd round pick of the Minnesota Wild in 2013.
Well, Dylan, since you're the one who put that word into the chat, let us know when you see this.
Yeah,
he might be mistaking him for someone who played for the Ducks. Is my
guess.
There
you go. Anyways, it is true. Curtis Gabriel moving on from hockey. So
yeah,
talking retirements. Well, that just came out a couple of days ago as well.
I missed that. My apologies. Sorry. Thanks, Dylan. But I think that's where we'll leave it as we're getting ready for camp. We will be back next week. We'll figure out the schedule here, but we'll be back next week for sure. Poor Devin.
Hopefully he'll be back.
Don't leave just because I showed up, Dev. Come on.
Yeah.
There's only room for
you come back. You come back into town, and Devin leaves, and then you come on the podcast, and Devin leaves.
I thought we had a bromance, Dev. What the hell?
Yeah, Devin feuded with Tyler last year, so maybe Devin is feuding with Chris this year. Maybe that's what's going on.
Well, he's probably feuding with a laptop, smashing it on the desk right now.
Yeah, maybe. I'll have to check on that.
Yeah.
But how do we follow everyone?
I am BeardyConnect03 on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE.
I'm at Schneise on most social media.
Devin is Gordhow09. He does his best work on Instagram.
Yes.
And he has cats there and dogs there and all of that. I am KEVOLE, Shifts and Pucks, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network. Click that like button, click that share button, click that retweet button. We've got lots of good content coming up. We are looking forward to the hockey season. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we thank you for watching. We thank you for listening. We will talk to you all. We will talk to you very soon. Bye for now, as we do our wave.